To Samantha, I was the quiet background to her spotlight. But even shadows collect evidence. She walked into the office like she owned it, because in many ways she did. Samantha's heels clicked across the marble floor of Hale Media's headquarters with the confidence of someone used to being applauded. She was the name people whispered in admiration or fear, the one invited to every strategy session, every gala, every boardroom where decisions were made. And me? I was the one refilling the coffee and adjusting the projector. I kept my head down that morning, clutching the USB drive with the pitch I'd spent the weekend perfecting. My fingers were stiff from lack of sleep, my mind buzzing with nerves. This campaign was bold. Integrated multimedia touchpoints, a fresh angle on digital consumer behavior, and I knew it could be a game changer. Chloe peeked over her cubicle wall like a meerkat sniffing gossip. "Did you hear? Samantha's pitching a last-minute idea at the exec meeting today," she whispered. My stomach dropped. By the time I made it to the assistant's inbox for pitch submissions, the room was already abuzz with Samantha's latest brilliance. I stepped into the lounge, my eyes locking onto the wide screen where the marketing team had pulled up a polished deck. I froze. Slide after slide mirrored my own. Font choices. Structure. Even the quirky campaign name I'd agonized over. I felt the air drain from my lungs. Samantha, radiant in a cream blazer, leaned casually against the counter, holding a mug that read, "World's Best Sister." Her eyes caught mine as she lifted the cup in mock salute. "Eliza," she said with feigned warmth, "your blouse is brave. Vintage goodwill?" Laughter sprinkled from a few interns too green to know better. My cheeks burned. I said nothing, but Harper, busy stacking PR folders nearby, paused just slightly, her eyes flickering to me and then back to Samantha. Later, I slipped into the lounge to get a glass of water, replaying everything in my mind like a bad dream. That's when Grayson Hale walked past. He was flanked by assistants, his signature gray overcoat sharp against the sterile light of the hallway. Our eyes met briefly. No smile, no words, just a knowing nod. I returned it, barely, and turned away before I could overthink it. I sat at my desk and stared at the flashing cursor on my monitor. My hands trembled as I plugged in the USB drive. There it was. My original deck. Untouched, time-stamped 48 hours before the exec meeting. I clicked through the slides, my breathing steadying. There was no way this was a coincidence. She hadn't even changed the order. An email notification blinked on screen. Subject: "You're invited. Hale Media Year-End Gala." I opened it. A cursory invitation, polite and generic, and below it, a highlighted section. Finalists for the Hale Pinnacle Award. Samantha Carter. Of course. I leaned back in my chair, letting the weight of it all sink in. I could hear Chloe's voice in the distance, probably praising Samantha's pitch. Somewhere across the floor, Samantha laughed loudly, her triumphant, unbothered kind of laugh. But what she didn't know, what no one knew, was that I wasn't going to be her shadow anymore. This time, I wasn't going to let her walk away with my work. Not again. They called me invisible, but what's invisible isn't always powerless. It's just patient. The city lights shimmered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of our penthouse, reflections dancing along the glossy marble floors like restless thoughts. Grayson sat by the fireplace, his laptop closed, his gaze fixed on me. The world knew him as the visionary behind Hale Media, the youngest CEO in the company's history. But here, stripped of pretense and applause, he was just my husband. "You're sure about this?" he asked quietly, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. "Once this starts, there's no undoing it." I leaned against the marble kitchen island, the USB drive warm in my palm. I've spent my entire life making myself smaller so she could shine. That ends now. He didn't speak, but the tension in his shoulders betrayed his concern. I knew what he was thinking. That silence had protected us. That anonymity had allowed me to build without distraction. But what he didn't know was that my silence had been curated. Not weakness, strategy. "I didn't hide our marriage out of shame," I said, crossing the room and placing the USB gently on the table. I hid it because I knew what they'd do if they thought I had power. I wanted to earn my way in, not be dragged behind your name like some executive accessory. He looked at me then, really looked. You've already earned it. You always did. I smiled faintly, then pulled out the folder tucked under my arm. Inside, printed emails between Samantha and her assistant, forwarding my drafts without attribution. I placed them next to the USB. She took my pitch, again. But this time I have proof. Timestamps, logs. Even Maya helped me retrieve the metadata. Remember her? Grayson's brow lifted. Maya? Quiet ET girl? The same one Samantha humiliated in the lunchroom last spring. Called her intern in front of half the finance department. He winced. She offered to help. Said I wasn't the only one Samantha stepped on to climb. He reached for the papers, scanning them slowly. His face tightened as the truth unraveled in black and white. Damn, he muttered. This is airtight. I nodded. The gala's in 2 weeks. I'm not going to out her publicly, yet. But I want her to feel the pressure. I want her to know she's not untouchable. His voice softened. And if it escalates? If she turns this into war? I met his gaze, steady. Then I won't be the one who started it, but I'll finish it. He was silent for a long moment, then finally said, if it comes to that, I'll back you. Publicly. But Eliza, there's no going back. I reached for my purse, sliding the USB inside without breaking eye contact. Then let's make sure there's no reason to go back. She wore glitter and pride. I wore silence and a loaded truth. The Grand Astoria Hotel sparkled like a snow globe, its ballroom bathed in champagne-colored light and ornamented with garlands that whispered of opulence and calculated charm. Hale Media's year-end gala was always a spectacle, but this year it pulsed with something heavier, a current beneath the glitter. Samantha arrived first, a vision in gold sequins that shimmered with every self-important step. Her laughter rang out like polished bells as she air-kissed board members and flirted effortlessly with department heads. Chloe trailed behind her like a secondhand spotlight, gushing and gasping on cue. I stood by the bar, my navy satin dress simple, elegant, intentionally unremarkable, at least to the untrained eye. I sipped sparkling water, watching the stage, the lights, the murmurs rippling through the room like invisible strings Samantha thought she controlled. She found me, of course. She always did. Samantha's perfume hit first, jasmine and ambition. Well, well, she cooed, swirling her wine. Walmart chic suits you. Still no ring, huh? The words stung, not because they were true, but because they were so performative. The crowd around us chuckled, and I caught Harper's eyes from across the room. She didn't laugh. She watched. Quietly. I smiled, unbothered. Some jewelry tarnishes in the light. I've learned to keep mine private. Her eyes narrowed. She wasn't used to me talking back, but she turned away with a toss of her hair, already focused on the stage, being prepped for the award ceremony. When Mr. Reeves took the podium, the hush fell swiftly. He welcomed the press, congratulated the nominees, and launched into the speech Samantha had practically written for him behind the scenes. I stood near the side, a silent observer, exactly where she always wanted me. And then he called her name. Applause thundered as Samantha ascended the stage, grinning, poised, radiant. She clutched the Crystal Award like it was her birthright. I could see it in her eyes. The belief that she had won again, had crushed me again, had outshined whatever flicker I had left. She launched into her speech. Words poured out. Eloquent, stolen. Paragraphs lifted straight from my pitch deck. I felt the heat rise in my chest, but said nothing. Not yet. The ballroom doors opened mid-speech. Gasps swept across the room like wind through wheat as Grayson stepped in. Sharp black tuxedo, tailored to perfection, confidence exuding from every quiet stride. Conversations stuttered, cameras pivoted. Chloe's jaw practically unhinged. He didn't look at Samantha. He looked at me. And then, as the applause awkwardly faded, he crossed the room, each step deliberate, each eye following. He reached me without hesitation, his hand finding the small of my back like it belonged there. Then, in front of every colleague, every reporter, every person who ever questioned why I stayed in the shadows, he said it. "Wife, let's go." Gasps erupted. Flashbulbs flared. Samantha's lips parted, but no words came. Her fingers clutched the trophy as if it might shatter. Mr. Reeves stood frozen. Chloe gawked. Harper straightened slowly, her eyes wide, not with confusion, but with realization. I turned to Samantha, cool and composed. "You always loved an audience, didn't you?" It wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. The ballroom had fallen into an eerie hush, the kind that doesn't come from silence, but from disbelief. Crystal glasses sat untouched, hands frozen mid-toast, lips parted mid-gossip. Samantha's award glinted under the stage lights like a crown half-earned. She clutched it tighter, her knuckles paling, the only part of her still moving. Grayson stood beside me, unwavering. "Yes," he said, his voice calm but resonant. "Eliza is my wife, and she's the true author of the winning campaign." A tremor of gasps tore through the room. Chloe audibly choked on her champagne. Someone's fork clattered against porcelain. Samantha didn't blink. Not once. I stepped forward, heels clicking with quiet resolve, and reached into my clutch. The same USB I'd tucked away weeks ago rested in my palm like a final piece of checkmate. I turned toward Mr. Reeves, who was watching with furrowed disbelief as though the air had turned upside down. "I believe the board deserves the full truth," I said. "This contains time-stamped files and an email chain that will show exactly when and how Samantha accessed my original drafts. Metadata included." He hesitated, just a beat, before accepting the drive with a solemn nod. Samantha's composure cracked. "This is ridiculous," she snapped, her voice suddenly shrill. "She's just jealous. This is a stunt." She turned toward Grayson. Tell them she's exaggerating." He didn't flinch. "Samantha, you've done this for years, to Eliza, to Maya, to anyone who wasn't loud enough to fight back." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Harper, still near the press line, leaned into Chloe's ear. "She was always the smart one," she whispered. "We just never looked close enough." A flicker of something unreadable crossed Chloe's face. The reporters had come alive now. Phones angled, flashes going off in rapid bursts. A woman in red called out, "Eliza, care to comment?" I turned, smiled softly, and said nothing, because everything I needed to say had already been said. Mr. Reeves cleared his throat and stepped forward. "Until this matter is formally reviewed, Samantha Carter is to report to HR for an internal audit, effective immediately." More gasps. A man at the back actually clapped once before realizing no one else had. Samantha's eyes darted from face to face, her posture sinking with each one that refused to meet her gaze. Then she turned. The sound of her heels echoed like punctuation. Sharp, hollow, final, as she stormed from the ballroom. I stood still. But behind me, murmurs rolled through the crowd like a wave gathering power. Why didn't she ever speak up? Was she always this brilliant? How long has she been with Grayson? I didn't answer, because I was waiting for the perfect moment. The louder she defended herself, the more everyone started reminding the truth. The conference room on the 17th floor was a far cry from the glittering Gala. Pale gray walls, frosted glass, a carafe of untouched water. Clinical, corporate, cold. Samantha sat stiffly across from the HR lead, her hands clasped so tightly her rings dug into her skin. I sat one seat down from her, silent. Harper occupied the corner, unobtrusive, her notepad closed but her eyes wide open. Mr. Reeves stood by the window, arms crossed, watching as the walls Samantha built with words began to crack, brick by brick. "I just want to clarify," Samantha began, voice syrupy with faux professionalism. This was all a misunderstanding. The campaign was a team effort. Maybe there was some overlap, but we were all working toward the same vision. HR didn't blink. We've reviewed the metadata, the lead said, sliding forward a printed report. The files originated from Eliza Carter's personal account and were accessed through your credentials 2 days before the submission deadline. There's also a recorded exchange with Maya Ortiz, who confirmed you pressured her to bypass admin protections. Samantha scoffed, a brittle sound. Oh, come on. Maya? That awkward little girl from IT? She's clearly siding with Eliza, probably jealous or manipulated into... She wasn't, I said simply. Samantha whirled toward me. You think you're clever? Planning all this behind my back? Marrying the CEO in secret? Sneaking around like some corporate spy? I kept my voice level. I didn't sneak. I survived. Mr. Reeves turned from the window. Ms. Carter, this is not a negotiation. Your access has been revoked. You are suspended indefinitely pending further review. Silence fell. Samantha's jaw twitched. You're making a mistake, she muttered. No, I said, standing slowly. You did. She stared up at me, breath short. You didn't just steal my work. You erased me, I continued. And now you're the one disappearing. No one argued. I gathered my folder. Nothing dramatic, no sweeping monologue. Just finality. As I passed Harper near the door, she reached into her blazer and discreetly handed me a folded piece of paper. Her fingers brushed mine, steady and sure. I didn't open it right away, but her words whispered louder than Samantha's ever did. You helped me find my voice, too. Justice doesn't always wear a badge. Sometimes it looks like walking away with your head held high. The rooftop cafe was tucked between ivy-covered buildings, a quiet nook above the city's pulse. Soft snow drifted down like confetti from a sky trying to make peace with the new year. New York was quieter in January, more reflective, slower, as if nursing the hangover of its own ambitions. I sat across from Harper, the scent of roasted espresso mingling with the distant hum of traffic. Her cheeks were flushed, either from the cold or excitement. I couldn't tell. They offered me the campaign team, she said, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly. I took it, and they want you to come back. I smiled, letting the words settle before I responded. I'm not. She blinked. You're not? I reached for my teacup, feeling the warmth seep into my palms. I'm starting my own consultancy. Quiet, lean, selective. No more internal politics, no more shadows. Harper's grin spread. Of course you are. From behind me, I felt a familiar hand brush my shoulder. Grayson's. He leaned in to kiss the top of my head before sitting beside me, casual but proud. You were always the powerhouse, he said, sipping from his own mug. The Gala just gave them a headline, but I've known all along. I met his gaze, steady and soft. I didn't need the spotlight. I just needed to stop hiding. My phone buzzed on the table. A journalist, again, requesting an exclusive interview. I didn't even open the email, just slid it to trash. I think silence served me better, I said. Grayson raised a brow. Until it didn't. Exactly. Later that evening, back at our apartment, I sat by the window with my laptop. The city stretched beyond the glass, lights blinking like ideas waiting to be born. I opened LinkedIn, took a breath, and typed, sometimes silence isn't submission. It's strength waiting for its moment. I hit post. The cursor blinked, then stopped. And then a vibration against the tabletop. A single text. I'm getting help. Not for you. For me. S. Eliza Carter stood in the soft morning light of her new office, if it could be called that. The walls were still blank, save for a corkboard that held only a single pinned photo. Her and Maya at a quiet coffee shop, each holding up peace signs, laughing like they'd known each other forever. Below it was a sticky note, written in Eliza's hand. Build something that doesn't need approval, just impact. It wasn't the 43rd floor skyline she'd grown used to at Hale Media. No glass walls, no espresso machine in the corner. Just her. A secondhand desk from Facebook Marketplace, and a view of a Brooklyn alley where pigeons held court on the windowsill. And yet, she felt freer than ever. Her laptop pinged. A Zoom request. Client pitch in 20 minutes. Eliza took a sip of her lukewarm coffee and adjusted the collar of her blazer. It was navy, sleek, understated. No more vintage goodwill comments, and even if there were, they wouldn't land. Not now. Not after everything. The past few weeks had moved quickly. After Samantha's internal suspension, Hale Media spun into controlled chaos. Press coverage ballooned when Grayson's public statement confirmed Eliza's authorship of the winning campaign. While Samantha lawyered up, the board quietly asked Eliza to consider reintegrating. Even offered her a team of her own. She declined. Not out of bitterness, but because her story didn't belong in that building anymore. It belonged to something new. Her consultancy, Quiet North, had already signed 3 clients. Not big names, not yet, but real companies. Founders who'd built something on principle. Founders who didn't mistake silence for inexperience. A knock on the office door jolted her from thought. "Come in," she called. Harper peeked in, holding 2 coffees and a manila folder. "Am I early?" "You're perfect." Eliza smiled. Harper set the drinks down and passed over the folder. Legal signed off on everything. The new non-disclosure clause, creative rights policy, it's all there. Every pitch from here on out is protected. Eliza let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Good. No more ghosts in my slides. Harper chuckled, settling into the chair across from her. "You know, the way you handled that gala, I don't think anyone breathed the same since. Chloe started sending overly polite emails. Mr. Reeves asked if I wanted to lead PR next quarter. You taking it?" "I told him I already had a boss," she said, raising an eyebrow. Eliza blinked, touched. "Harper, you gave me more than a job," Harper said, her voice quiet but steady. "You gave me the courage to stop being background, too." Before Eliza could respond, another ping sounded from her laptop. Zoom invite. She clicked join. A middle-aged woman with tired eyes and a fierce smile appeared on screen. "Miss Carter," she said, "I followed your work since before the gala. You built something powerful under someone else's name. I think it's time we build something under yours." Eliza nodded. "I'm ready." They dove into the pitch. Branding for a nonprofit focused on career recovery for women over 40. By the time they wrapped, the client's eyes were glassy. "I've never heard someone tell my organization's story like that before," she said. "It felt like you were narrating it from the inside." "That's how I spent most of my life," Eliza replied. "On the inside, looking out." The call ended. Harper stood, gathering her things. "I'll leave you to breathe for 5 minutes before the next pitch." "Thanks." When Harper left, Eliza turned toward the corkboard again. The photo. The sticky note. She reached for a new one and wrote, "What they tried to erase became my blueprint." A quiet knock returned. It wasn't Harper this time. Maya stood in the doorway, a USB drive dangling from her fingers. "Thought you'd want this," she said. "Final audit from IT. Includes Samantha's deletion logs, every file she tried to scrub after the gala." Eliza accepted it without flinching. "I'm guessing it's ugly." "It's messy," Maya said, "but it's proof for whatever comes next." Eliza set it gently beside her keyboard. "What comes next is choice. Mine." Maya gave a small smile. "Feels good, doesn't it?" "It feels earned." As Maya left, Eliza opened a new folder on her desktop. She didn't name it after Samantha. She named it after herself. EC//initiative's new logo. New legacy. Same backbone. Because this time, she wasn't just reclaiming what had been taken. She was building what they never could. A future rooted in truth, designed in patience, and signed with her name at the top. Bold, centered, undeniable. The headlines had finally stopped. Samantha Carter's name no longer trended in industry circles. No more glossy interviews, no more panels where she spoke about innovation and collaborative leadership using someone else's ideas. Her silence had become louder than her speeches ever were. Eliza Carter scrolled past another article, this one about Hale Media's restructuring, and closed the tab. The damage had been done. The board had accepted her proof. Samantha had been removed from all creative projects pending the outcome of legal arbitration. And while the company scrambled to save face, Eliza had already moved on. But the past had one final card to play. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She stared at it for a moment, then answered. Eliza? The voice was quiet, familiar, and oddly smaller than she remembered. Samantha? She said, her tone neutral. Didn't expect to hear from you. I didn't expect a call. A pause. Can we meet? Eliza blinked. Why? Because everything's gone. The award, the speaking deals, my job. And I'm not calling to beg, I need to understand how we got here. Eliza almost laughed. Almost. We got here because you stepped on people like they were rungs on a ladder, she replied. I just finally stopped standing still. Another pause. Please, just coffee. She agreed, but not out of kindness. She needed closure, not just for Samantha, but for herself. They met at a small cafe in Tribeca, the kind Eliza once couldn't afford. Samantha arrived first. She was dressed simply. No sequins, no personal assistant in tow. Just her, a half-empty cup of coffee, and a haunted look that Eliza had never seen on her sister's face. You look different, Samantha said as Eliza approached. I am, Eliza replied, sitting across from her. Samantha exhaled. I thought if I lost everything, I'd feel angry, but mostly I just feel hollow. Eliza didn't respond. I didn't think what I was doing mattered, Samantha continued. Taking your work, bending credit. I told myself it was just business, that you didn't mind. You never fought back. No, Eliza said calmly. I built quietly. You stole loudly. I know, Samantha whispered. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted to say, I see it now. Eliza looked her in the eye. What exactly do you see? Samantha blinked. That I only ever felt important when someone else looked at me like I mattered. That's why I needed the stage, the credit, the spotlight. And I only ever felt safe when I was invisible, Eliza said, which is why I let you take it, until I didn't. Silence hung between them. Why didn't you tell them we were sisters? Samantha asked suddenly. Because they wouldn't have believed it, Eliza replied. They would have looked at you, the golden girl, and me, the silent one, and thought you lifted me up, not the other way around. Samantha's eyes glistened. You were never silent. No, Eliza agreed. Just patient. She stood to leave. Wait, Samantha said. What happens now? Eliza turned. Now? I build something that has nothing to do with you, and you figure out who you are when no one's clapping. Back at the quiet North office, Eliza found Maya and Harper waiting with folders in hand. New client pitch? Eliza asked. Harper grinned. 3, and one of them's asking for keynote representation. You. Eliza smiled. Let's make sure the keynote has a lock on her slides this time. Laughter filled the office, but beneath it was something deeper. Confidence, community. Maya handed her a USB drive. I archived the full Samantha case. Emails, logs, legal statements. Thought you might want to keep it, or delete it. Eliza took the drive, stared at it for a moment, then dropped it into the shredder. No point keeping ghosts. Weeks passed. Her consultancy grew. Her name was finally hers alone. Attached to wins, not whispers. One afternoon, she got an email. Subject line, panel request. Women in Media Innovation. They wanted her as the closing speaker. Harper walked in as she was reading it. You gonna say yes? Eliza looked out the window at the city skyline. Her city now. Her name, her story, her voice. I'll say yes, she said, but only if I write the headline myself. Closing keynote, Media Women Rising Summit. Eliza Carter stepped onto the stage. No sister behind her. No stolen slides. Just her. She looked out at the crowd. Hundreds of women watching, waiting. She took a breath. Growing up, I was told I had a good ear for ideas, not a voice, she began. But turns out, sometimes a good ear is how revolutions start. The crowd leaned in. I spent years behind the curtain. I made things happen, but I let others take the bow. Why? Because I thought that's what good girls do, what smart women do, what safe choices look like. She paused. But silence isn't always safety. Sometimes it's strategy, and sometimes it's survival. But there comes a time when silence becomes betrayal, not to others, but to yourself. The room was silent now. I don't regret being quiet. I regret waiting so long to stop. Applause erupted, and Eliza Carter, no longer invisible, finally smiled. Because this time, every word was hers. I stared at the message for a long time and didn't reply. Some things didn't need an answer, because peace wasn't something you earned from someone else. It was what you chose when you finally let go. She never needed the spotlight, just the moment the truth could finally speak. In a world that often rewards the loudest voice, Eliza proved that dignity, patience, and evidence carry a weight louder than applause. Like the final chord of a long-forgotten melody, justice may arrive late, but when it does, it echoes through every silence that came before it. Sometimes, reclaiming your story doesn't require a war, just the courage to no longer whisper. Like, share and comment your thoughts below if this story struck a chord. Type 1 if you've ever been underestimated too.